Rosemary will now talk about a character that she found to be an unexpected hero.
When Helena first asked me to speak about Ruth, I wasn't sure how I could do it or how to start, and so she gave me some questions as a guide. First one, who had I chosen? Second, why? Third, what made her a hero? And fourth, what can we learn from her to help us today? I have chosen Ruth as one of few women mentioned in the Bible whose story is set in the time of the Jewish history of the Judges. She was not a Jew as she came from Moab. She was alone as her husband had died. She married her husband when he moved with his parents Elimelech and Naomi to Moab when there was a famine in Judah. During a study group I attended, we were studying the book of Ruth and would read one chapter before each meeting. Before the first meeting, we were asked to imagine ourselves as one of the characters in the first chapter and say how we as the character felt. I thought I would be drawn to Naomi as a 4 times mother-in-law myself, but I found I couldn't get into the character and I was drawn to Ruth. And I wrote the first chapter because I thought I was fascinated by it. I wrote it for myself as Ruth might have felt. She was such a strength to Naomi and a help when Elimelech had died, and then the 2 sons died, and she and the other daughter-in-law had both lost their husbands, so they knew what it was like in those days and how difficult it was to be a woman alone. There were laws in the Jewish religion about what would happen to you, as you heard in the reading. And I also found that when she married Boaz, she became an important link in Jesus' family history by bearing a son, Obed, who was the grandfather. I don't see Ruth as a hero in the traditional sense of brave, strong, courageous, but having thought about those adjectives, I realised that she was all those 3 in a different way, and others as well. I believe that through her life with Naomi, she was converted to the Jewish faith. Ruth was, beside these 3 traits that I've already mentioned, God-fearing, loyal, obedient, loving, hard-working, caring, and willing to accept however her life turned out. She was very well thought of by Naomi, Boaz, whom she worked for, and also the women of Bethlehem, where she moved with Naomi. And they said of her, she was worth 7 sons to Naomi. As a woman, think we can see her as a good example of how to live a good life, putting God's will before our own inclinations and trying to live each day with the help of God, cope as Ruth coped with whatever life turns up, and to welcome whatever God seems to lead us to. If you're interested in her story, read it in full. It's fascinating to me. It's very short and it's tucked in between Judges and Samuel.
We're now extremely lucky to have a late edition from Sarah and Emily, who also chose Ruth as their hero.
We have chosen Ruth as our hero because of the incredible loyalty and kindness that she showed to her mother-in-law Naomi. Here is a summary of her story.
Ruth and Orpah are the Moabite daughters-in-law of Israelite Naomi, who has lost both her sons and her husband to illness and intends to return to Israel from Moab. Naomi knows that it will not be easy to get back to Israel as an unmarried widow and suggests Orpah and Ruth stay behind. Orpah agrees, but Ruth stays loyal to Naomi, saying she will go with Naomi and that Naomi's people and God will become her own. While Ruth is searching a harvest field for food, She meets Boaz, who is remarkably generous to her. He listens to her story and prays that God will bless her. Ruth tells Naomi that she's met Boaz, which makes Ruth very pleased, as Boaz is their family redeemer, meaning he can marry into Naomi's family and protect her family line. Boaz agrees and, like Ruth, shows loyalty to Naomi's family, even after finding a closer blood relative of Naomi, who refuses to marry Ruth because she is a Moabite.
Through the loyalty of Ruth and Boaz, the tragedy and death that Naomi suffered becomes joy and birth when Ruth has a new son, Obed, who in time became the great-grandfather of King David.
Thank you, Rosemary, Sarah and Emily. It was enthralling to hear your accounts about Ruth. The character from the Bible I have chosen to be my hero is also a woman. The Bible is generally very male-dominated due to the culture at the time. And when we hear about women, it is either because they are the cause of something evil, or in short mentions about family situations, with women treated as second-class citizens and even possessions. So when there are stories with women as the main characters, these are especially important. The woman I have chosen is known for her impact rather than by her name. She is just known as the Samaritan woman at the well. She has everything against her. Low social status. She was a Samaritan, a Gentile, the enemy of the Jews, seen as ritually unclean. She was at the well at midday and alone. Women usually came in groups and at the cooler times of day, early morning or late evening. She's pictured as a bad woman, a social outcast. On seeing a man at the well, she should have withdrawn to a distance of at least 20 feet. A social taboo is broken by Jesus, talking to her, a stranger, female and unaccompanied. She is living with a man who is her husband. Jesus tells her that she has 5 husbands. Now, we do not know why she has had 5 husbands, but we can assume this has potentially involved much pain and distress. Despite this, she manages to verbally challenge Jesus, exhibiting remarkable theological acumen, sparring with Jesus over where true worship is found. He explains why she is wrong, yet doesn't judge her. There is something beautiful, convicting, countercultural and transformative about Jesus' interactions with this woman. Despite all that should have stood in her way, she became the first female preacher, evangelising to the men of her village. This was unheard of. Yet she must have been convincing in what she said, as the whole village wanted to hear more. We can learn a lot from her in this interaction. Both Jesus and the woman break boundaries. We all naturally assess others on grounds of race, gender, age, religion, sexual orientation, to mention a few. But we should think in terms of inclusion, not exclusion. We should not construct man-made boundaries to faith. Secondly, she heard the good news, and despite the fact that she was a woman of lowly status, she still ran excitedly to share the message. We too should not let our weaknesses and fears stand in the way of telling and showing others about our faith. And thirdly, she interrogated the word. She didn't just listen and accept. She asked questions until it made sense. We too should read the Bible in the same way. Ask questions, find out background information, and more fully understand what we read. Once both Ruth and the unnamed woman had encountered God, they gave their life fully to him. We too need to learn to give him everything. Let us sing together with feeling, I will offer up my life.